House of the Dragon is not Game of Thrones. When I say Game of Thrones, I mean the first 4 seasons. We knew House of the Dragon is not Game of Thrones when we watched Season 1. Season 1 is good. It is entertaining, fresh, exquisitely made, but it's not great. At least not as great as Game of Thrones. Why is that so? I made a video before. Check it out in this channel if you're interested. But that video is in Chinese. Basically, it's because House of the Dragon sacrifices character coherence for feminism and other political correctness reasons. In that video, I also said that if Season 2 continues down this line, that is, if it insists on all the characters, at least all the female characters, especially Rhaenyra, being perfect, the show will only get worse. Now, by the end of episode 4, everyone's impressed by the battle at Rook's Rest and the last appearance of Rhaenys. Viewers are a little bit relieved even, for at last they are given some hardcore Dance of the Dragons. Before episode 4, every honest viewer who's watched the first 3 episodes would say that they are worried that season 2 will not be good. That 18-minute dragon fight at Rook's Rest is good, but it's still not great. I'll talk about that later. And even if it is great, it cannot save the season from being not great. Even with more battle scenes, more dragons to come, they cannot save this season. Why? In Chinese, we have a word 套路. It is kind of like cliché, but not entirely. A 套路 is something that's routine, that's everyone's doing, that's predictable, that's safe because it appeals to the majority. It's hard to find anything in contemporary TV that is free of 套路. Game of Thrones is great, to a large extent because it does not follow any routine, it does not follow any 套路. To build characters with so many episodes, so that the audience has grown so much attached to them, and then to let them die just like that, is something that's very not 套路. It's exactly this deliberate choice to go against the routine, to not follow the expected, that makes Game of Thrones great. The first thing that sets Game of Thrones apart is its straightforwardness in storytelling. It just tells us what is said, what is done, by whom and whom. There's no sentimental sequence where the inner voice or the thoughts of a certain character is shown. I once heard a Chinese poet, Feng Tang, talking about why 活着, a novel by Yu Hua, To Live, touches people. That is, if you want to touch people, 要白描,不要抒情. Show, don't tell. This actually applies perfectly here. Game of Thrones show how the story goes, but it doesn't tell the audience why or what these characters are thinking. You just see the characters carry on with what they are doing. We see Ned Stark do this and that, we see Littlefinger do this and that, we see Varys do this and that, we see Robert Baratheon do this and that, all without being explicitly told why or what they are thinking. But it all makes perfect sense as the plot unfolds. When we see Ned Stark die, we see Robb die, and we see Joffrey die. Surprising and shocking, yet when you look back, it all makes so much sense. Like in the very beginning of the show, we see Robert Baratheon insisting on going to the crypt to see Lyanna Stark just after he arrives at Winterfell. Then, down some episodes, we see he and Cersei talk about their marriage. Then it all makes the thing complete. By the way, that scene where Robert Baratheon and Cersei talk about their marriage is actually the best scene I've ever seen on TV. House of the Dragon lacks the hardcore, overt storytelling quality of Game of Thrones. Instead of just giving us the story, House of the Dragon plays these little games with cinematography, with montages, with angles. Just see how Lyanna's funeral is shot. From Rhaenyra's angle, all these characters on the funeral, their concerns and their relations with Rhaenyra are introduced to the audience. Little is said, but a lot is told. At least it seems so. And back then, I really liked this. Information is given, not through characters saying lines, but through cinematographic language. These are good production value and are sometimes interesting, but now it has come to the point where they don't even tell the story anymore. Seeing all these non-story scenes in Season 2, I cannot help thinking, back in Season 1, all these big scenes with a lot of characters, each of them seemingly to have a lot in mind and a lot to tell, or perhaps just to cover the fact that the series doesn't have a good story to tell after all. Game of Thrones doesn't use this much cinematographic maneuver. In the first 4 seasons, almost none is used. It's always these very simple and plain shots fixed at a certain distance. It's all because the story in itself is exciting enough, and any fancy cinematography would only be superfluous. Then let's come to the question, why House of the Dragon doesn't seem to have a good story to tell. It should have had. It is based on Fire and Blood, a complete work that covers the history of Westeros from Aegon's conquest up to the regency of Aegon III. So don't tell me it's because the original work is not complete. I once worried House of the Dragon would not be good because Fire and Blood doesn't offer as much support to a TV series as The Song of Ice and Fire does for Game of Thrones. I talked about this in one of my videos. It's a review of Season 1 of House of the Dragon. I said that Fire and Blood gives only the framework of the story. It will not be possible for the screenwriters to produce stuff as good as Game of Thrones, but it's okay. Anyone who read A Song of Ice and Fire and also watched Game of Thrones would know how primarily it is the books that makes the show a possible thing. But having watched 4 episodes of Season 2, I've changed my mind. It's not because of this, not at all. Fire and Blood, the original work, is not to be blamed. Because the TV series fails to, well, not fails to, it does not intend to, and therefore does not tap the full potential, tap the full value of the book. The book might be a sketch, it's just a glimpse into the history, but it is so darn well written, and actually contains a lot of interesting details. People say House of the Dragon lacks the scope of Game of Thrones because it is only about one house. Yes, it is a civil war within House Targaryen, but the war involves a lot of other great houses, almost all the great houses in Westeros, and a hell lot of characters outside House Targaryen. But till now, the TV series insists on focusing only on the few major characters. It does not look further or try to expand its storyline even for a little bit. In the book, we have this fantastic battle scene between the Brackens and the Blackwoods at a riverside mill, where the legendary Black Aly killed Amos Bracken with an arrow through the eye slit of his helmet. But this battle is not even there in the TV series, only a scene after the battle is shown. Black Aly is kind of an important character in the story to come, but we guess her part will be cut from the show. Actually, a lot of characters are cut or combined. Even the members of the Black and Green Councils are all a smudge. Really, do you know who's who? Anyone that's special and memorable from those councils? The book tells how Lord Celtigar is known for his wealth and cunning, and how Lord Jasper Wild wins his nickname Ironrod. These are interesting little anecdotes to enrich these characters, but they are not even mentioned in the show. Actually, those characters don't even deserve one close-up, not even one. All we see is Rhaenyra, Diamond, Alicent, Kristen, Otto, Rhaenys, and Sea Snake, and the royal children. Only they deserve to have real lines. All the other characters and great houses are dispensed of. A good show should first serve the story and then the characters. House of the Dragon seems to be going the opposite way. Game of Thrones let protagonists die. House of the Dragon calls dead characters back. Instead of seeking outward, House of the Dragon looks into these characters, trying to dig interesting things from within them, but with a terrible outcome, because essentially these are not Hamlet characters with a to-be or not-to-be struggle. They are characters involved in a bloody civil war in a fantasy medieval world. What the show should seek to do is to tell this epic, grand, and bloody story, not to psychoanalyze these characters, to get some sort of insight into human nature. Just look at these illusions Daemon's experiencing in Harrenhal. I got it, he's regretting, he's feeling guilty, he's having a struggle. But then what? Does it matter? Will he do something to mend his sense of guilt? Or will he unleash the monster within and kill his wife for the throne? Just tell us what he does, okay? Stop with all this whining and sentimental stuff. It's also effective and not interesting at all. And also talking about Rhaenys' ending. This little game with the sea snake, talking to her about his bastard sons before she leaves for Rook's Rest. So does she go to the battle in a suicidal mood because she just learned about the bastards? Or does she do that because she knew that the Sea Snake is so reluctant to name Baela heir to Riftmark because he knows he has these bastard sons? We don't know. All these little maneuvers seems to be telling us something, but it does not. It just weakens the story. This inward-looking instead of outward-looking mode of storytelling determines the show's scope will be small, and it will not be epic. Another thing is, even only with these few characters that the show treasures so much, And even with this inward-looking standpoint of storytelling, the show is not doing well because it tries to make every character lovable and relatable. From season 1, it lacks the nasty characters that are just bad. In Game of Thrones, King Joffrey is bad. He's just bad. Cersei is in some ways relatable, but she's essentially selfish and bad. I don't know if these characters have fans, but I don't mind having such nasty characters, and whom I hate to the nuts, but whom I enjoy seeing in the story. Well, I don't know if Kristen Cole has fans. Don't get me started on Kristen Cole. What a peculiar one. He's not bad, just despicable. And if you look into him, he's despicable for no clear reason. Joffrey, I can understand. Cersei, I can understand. Even Larys, I can understand. Kristen Cole, I cannot. The thing is, not everyone has to be good, but almost all the House of the Dragon characters are so full of feelings. They are all so caring, so loving, so fragile. Even Otto Hightower moves me to tears, does he not? When he says bye-bye to Alicent in episode 5 in season 1, and now when he again says bye-bye to Alicent in episode 2, and even when he's sacked by Viserys, and when now he's sacked by Aegon II, he seriously moves me to tears. Now he's officially the most lovable character in the show. And even Larys, because though the show does not tell us why he's bad, he at least is consistently bad. He has character coherency and he plays the game. All the other characters are like children. Don't play this juvenile game. The show is rated 18 or older. It's a struggle for the throne. You kill people to get power. How come now it's just people loving people? Where's the scheming, the plotting, and the deception? From season 1, basically people who die in the books also die in the show, but in the show nobody is killed on purpose. It's like the show is glorifying everyone. Nothing is done by the will or scheme of anyone. It's just a downward spiral driven by accident after accident. Why would Daemon think that cheese and blood could subdue Aemond and even kill him without being caught? Why would cheese and blood take this high-risk job since they would know for them it's almost an impossible mission? Is it because they would do it for the money? Is it because they are basically bad and volatile people with nothing to lose? Or is it because Daemon told them if they couldn't find Aemond, they could just kill a young prince or a Hightower, which is something accomplishable? We do not know. A son for son, did Daemon say that? Did he not say that? We never know. Even after episode 2, where Daemon quarrels with Rhaenyra over this very question for a better half of the episode, we still don't know. Just like in season 1, did Daemon kill his first wife, Lady Rhea? Did he not? Just tell us, okay? Do you want to tell viewers the story or not? It's like the showrunners want to tell the story but are too scared to tell the dark side of it. If not, why all these seemingly cool but actually unnecessary little maneuvers? I guess they want to shed good light on the character Daemon with all this ambiguity, but the result is the opposite. I don't like this sentimental and whiny Daemon. Now with Daemon in Harrenhal seeing all these visions and illusions, it's really getting old. These little games serve to lower Daemon into a character whose primary purpose is to highlight, in comparison, Rhaenyra's mercifulness, virtue, and her sense of responsibility. I guess the showrunners are doing all this to cater to feminism, political correctness, a lot of soft values, and to cater to the fans. Some say that in season 8 of Game of Thrones, Arya got to kill the Night King simply because the character has the biggest fan base. Well, if it's the same thing behind the writing of House of the Dragon, it's already doomed to fall short of greatness.